Hi everyone, welcome to week 3 of our Advent watercolor projects. This is Melissa with The Creative Season, and it is the week of joy, and I am so excited. So we are moving into celebration. I love the concept of joy. It is one of my favorite things, and I'm so happy to be here painting with you. So we are going to be painting the pink candle, which is usually a symbolic of the week of joy this week, and in a middle of a forest. And I'll talk more about that in the painting, but go ahead and grab your paper. I took a 9x12, cut it in half, so it is a 6x9, and I've got some colors. We've got ultramarine blue, yellow, of course, some pink, brown, and a green. We're going to blend these colors. It's going to be beautiful. You'll see too, we're leaving a space if we want to add the Bible verses at the bottom or some journaling. Of course, we can use the back for a prayer or a praise or Bible verses. This is such a beautiful project, and I'm so glad to be painting with you. So let's get our supplies and we'll get going. Hi everyone, this is Melissa. We're back with Advent week 3. This week is joy is the theme with the pink candle. So we are going to be creating a sketch of a dark night sky with the star, and we're going to have a forest, a little forest, and then a tree stump with the pink candle on it. So I'm going to quickly sketch that out now, and it's going to be pretty simple. My goal is for these to be practices that you can do fairly, I'm just moving my paint to the side, fairly quickly, but you could also, I had just taken a 9x12 and cut it in half. You could use the whole 9x12, use it vertically. It would give you a little bit more space for your tree, so that is another option for you. But let's go ahead, and I'm going to actually start with painting our tree stump. And for this stump, we're doing just a nice wide circle. If you wanted to go ahead and even make your candle coming out here, it'll be a nice pillar candle, and this is going to be nice because the pink candle is going to just pop out, and I'm going to put my candle as if it's burning unevenly a bit, and we'll do right in here. I'm going to come on, I've got some pine needles coming off there. My tree stump, I'm going to have just coming off like this, and it was a tree that was old with lots of deep roots, so we're going to add some of those in here as well, and creating just a beautiful, beautiful tree stump. And evening that out a bit, actually would probably look a bit like this. If you need your eraser, feel free to just erase a bit until you have your tree stump just how you want it. And I've got that. Now what I'm going to do is with our tree line, we're almost going to have a sense too of a sweeping, if you even wanted to draw a line like that, because we'll have the stars coming down, and I'm going to actually have one of the trees coming right here. I'm going to just go ahead and do a light sketch of a couple of trees. And good, making sure you can see that. I'm kind of playing with the light this morning. It's a beautiful morning. The sun, it's a cold morning. The sun is coming out and warming us up just a bit, melting that chill on the air. Let's go ahead, and I'm thinking too, I'm going to have a couple of main trees. So I'm just going to kind of sketch the stumps or the trunks of those trees around here. We won't see all of them, of course. We'll end up having some pine needles on the ground here. When I was doing the practice one for this, I was kind of playing around too with the colors of just using a couple of colors, but really letting that pink candle and the light really pop. We're going to have a star, and I'm going to do a Bethlehem Star up in the corner here. And we're going to be unconventional with the way we paint. As you know, I often am. I'm just going to make some other marks for a couple other stars. And then again, make the tops of your trees will be the most important part. These, I'm just kind of adding in the branches of my main trees too. I know I'm going to have a couple little ones over here, for example, peeking out behind. And what we'll do is we'll lay down a permanent green first, and then we will end up adding in the darker colors to create the differentiation between the different trees. And one of the reasons I wanted to do it like this, because I was thinking of I'm thinking of joy this morning, and thinking of Advent and the rhythm of Advent and the practice of Advent. All right, I've got this tree here. Okay, so I think that's enough of sketching. We have the main point, so go ahead, and the colors you're going to want, I'm actually going to lay down my stars first. If you were heavy with your pencil marking, maybe erase a little bit of it now. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to grab my paint. So make sure you have some clean water. I've got a couple of brushes. I'll be using my size 7 today, and then I'll be using a smaller one too. I have this size 2 right here. So that'll be both. Those would be the 2 that I'm using. So I'm going to go ahead and start laying down some paint, and I'm going to grab my yellow first, because I am going to do the stars first, which I realize is a little bit unconventional, but that's okay. I want to get those dry before we put the blue in. So let me go ahead here. Again, we're going to get some water. I have a cadmium yellow that I'm using, whatever yellow you have. And with that star, that Bethlehem star, we're going to go ahead, just make it big and beautiful. If you feel like it got a little bit too big, that's not a big deal. I'm going to go ahead and add in my other stars. That'll also remind us that that is the sky, right? Where we won't get our sky and our trees mixed up. I'm going to even add a little bit more water here. And I'm going to gum it down here too. And I am going to go ahead and put the candlelight. Again, I realize this is a bit unconventional, but make it nice and big and bold. Leave a little bit of white in there. And then let's go ahead now. I am going to go ahead and I am going to just lay down my trunk. So I'll go ahead and grab the other paintbrush. I've got my burnt sienna, which you know is one of my favorite browns. It's nice and warm and light. I'm going to go ahead and just lay down a bit of the trunk here. And we'll end up adding some other colors to add shadowing. But right now we're just getting a first layer of color down. I'm not coloring the whole thing in. I'm just adding that paint, noticing the grooves too. So adding some shape in there like that, moving this around. Using water pretty liberally too in my paint. It will end up getting wet. We'll end up drying it before we do the second layer. I am going to go ahead now too and add in some of my trunks and the trees around it. And some of these are bigger, you know, we're going to make them growing their own roots that they're growing in. And this one right here will make it bigger. Have another one hiding back here, and we may add in a few more later, but we're going to just start with those. And some of these, it's going to be a thick forest where we may not even see a lot of the roots, or the roots of the branches. Okay, now let's grab our blue, and I'm going to be using, I have an ultramarine blue and I have a phthalo blue, and I'm just mixing them together a bit. I think I'm going to start with my phthalo blue. Use what you have, and over by where the stars are, I am just going to start painting around. And yep, there's going to be white. I'm not touching the yellow. I don't want to do that. But start to just go around and create this night sky. And then I'm going to add in the ultramarine blue and just let it dance on the paper. So looking at where my stars are, if you think to yourself, goodness, I wish I had added some more stars, then just leave some blank spots, or add a few more stars in, but just don't let that water touch. Otherwise we'll have green stars, and we don't want that. And so I'm moving around again, just thinking about the night sky. I think, well, and many people have said that one of the hallmarks of a life walking with Christ is our joy in spite of what's going on, right? It's not based on circumstances. Joy is described as a calm delight. There was certainly a lot of joy at Jesus' coming, and this beautiful pink candle that we have, that we continue to celebrate his coming as a baby for our salvation and all that it means for us. And so no matter what the year has brought for us, if it's been a great year, if it's been a hard year, if it's been all of the above, no matter how we're ending the year, we can have joy because of Jesus and what he brought to us all those years ago, of salvation, of the promises of God, of a way to the Father. So that is something good to focus on, and I'm thinking a lot about that this week. Okay, so let's grab that darker blue. Grab the darker blue and then just start dropping the darker blue in. I'm not even making paint marks per se. I'm letting that blue have its way and just dancing. So that's just going to create, so we don't have a flat sky, and we're going to go back in with a wash after it dries. but I wanted to lay that down first. The other thing too is I'm going to go right under here with some of my leaf where it's going to be dark, since this is night, and I'm just going to go ahead and add even some blue even around my tree stump here. We're going to add brown over it so it's not going to stay blue. All right, I might even add some blue on my tree stump because that just actually creates a darker brown. It won't show up at blue. Sometimes it starts to look a bit like a Payne's gray or even a brown depending on what kind of blue you have. So we've got that going on. I like that. Okay, very good. So now let's go ahead and let's grab our green. I am using on here, I'm using a permanent green, and that's pretty much a pretty spring green. It's pretty light, but we're going to add the same blues that I put in the sky. I'm going to end up adding those to the green, and that's going to deepen the green as well as, let's just start laying down the trees, as adding on a lot of shadowing without adding in a different hue, because all the blues and greens, when you start to get the different colors, they all have different undertones of red or just different purples. There's all sorts of different undertones when you go to the store to look at all the different paint options. So the more we can stick with a limited palette, the more our paintings are going to look very cohesive. So you can see too, I've got one tree here. I am making sure I don't put my fist down onto the painting, because that really will, that'll smear. And I'm always bummed when I do that. But I'm just going around too. I'm visualizing the trees and where they're laying. And I am going pretty light. I'm leaving lots of white space. And this is going to allow us to come back and add in this shadowing. And then just moving that right around here. And so obviously this is going to be one of my bigger trees here. And I've got a big tree here. I've got a tree here, and that one's in the back. And probably I'm going to actually grab some water. And I'm going to just make this a lighter tree back here. And I'm even just going to do the top. And moving this down here. One of the things too, I think this trunk, I'm going to make it a little bit thicker. This one will end up coming out much bigger. This guy's a big tree right here. Again, lightly going around the candle. Just like that. Getting some more water if you need that. Try not to get it into the sky. And that looks really, really, okay, that's a really good start to our layering. I like that a lot. And I'm seeing the different trees here, which is fantastic. Let's go ahead and go back in here really quick. We're going to add in a few more branches on this one. And the importance is letting it dry for a little bit too, because that way it doesn't blur together. Otherwise, we just get that flat, kind of a muddy mess, and that's never any fun. I'm actually going to just lay down some branches as if the pine needles are falling, as they often do on the floor, right? And I'm almost just doing a bit of a crisscross. And this also, if you wanted to leave a space where maybe you want to do a bit of journaling down here, this might be a good space, or write a Bible verse or just a few words. We could leave that space a little bit lighter. Now I am going to come back. I'm going to grab a little bit more brown. And I'm going to add it right over here to this tree. I want to make this a bit thicker. So if you look around your trees, you're like, that one I want to be thicker, and I want it to maybe go deeper into the ground. Go ahead and make that change, add in those other details. I'm going to put some color right in here with this one, right down on this guy, just a little bit there. Okay, so this is looking good now. Now I want to take this small brush, the real tiny one, pick up your pink, and I just have a permanent rose here, and just go ahead. We want this to be pretty dry before I start adding the color around it. And light up that beautiful pink candle. And pink is such a joyful color, right? It's a joyful color. It's a beautiful color. I'm going around, not hitting. The yellow should be dry now so that you can do all the way that circle part of your candle. Again, I'm not needing to paint the whole thing. We'll end up adding a bit of blue. In fact, I can add just a hair of blue right in here just to go ahead and get a little bit boldness. Now, if you find that was too much, like that was a bit of too much for mine, just go ahead and grab a paper towel and I will blot that, and then I'll just come back over and add a little bit more. Not a big deal. And I'll just come back over, and the darkness actually stays a little bit. So okay, so that's really good. All right, let's go ahead and grab your blue. We're about to take a break, but before we do, add your blue to your green so that you get a darker green. If you find that it's too much blue, just mix in some more green. So get that little bit of a darker green, and then let's come back, and I want to just go ahead and add in some additional layers. And that's going to help us too when we come back in, and we're going to add some more layers on that very last. Some details, we'll grab our pen. If you want to pull in a micron pen and add some more layers, you certainly can, but just pick up some blue. If you want to use a small tiny brush, that'll help. That'll be fine too. It's not a real big painting, and so you'll be able to squeeze in some more details. But I'm just looking at those branches that are closer to the front of the painting, and I'm just adding them in. I want to just differentiate them from the ones that are farther back. And we'll do this again, and we'll add in some dark blue around too, towards the bottom where we're seeing the night sky pop in. But we'll let everything dry first so that it doesn't get messy. Okay. All right, we have our dark sky, we have our forest, but even around the forest we have that beautiful celebratory candle, right? That just changes everything for us who are practicing Advent and follow Jesus. This is such a special time of year for us as we just celebrate the birth of Jesus. We just celebrate the joy, right, that he brings no matter what is going on. So I'm going to see you guys in just a little bit. Let your painting completely dry. We'll come back with some pens and we'll do some fun details. Okay, everyone, we're back for the second part, so hopefully your paper is just about dry or very dry, getting dry. Mine is, and so I'm going to go ahead and start doing some pen work. And really the pen work, it can be especially helpful, especially like in areas right over here where you can just tell it just got a little bit too much paint. I was a little bit too enthusiastic. You know, we got a little bit of the blue merging in with the tree here. So I'm going to use my pen to create some delineation of really creating the details, and then we're going to do another layer of paint. Now this might also be the point where if you wanted to write in some Bible verses or some thoughts for the week 3 of Advent, the week of joy is what we're celebrating, this would be a great time to do that as well. I was just looking at this story in Luke, the narrative, and realizing how much the word joy and rejoice is a constant theme from Mary to Elizabeth. And then, of course, one of my favorite verses, Luke, I believe it's Luke 10, when the angels visit the shepherds, those precious shepherds, I'm sure they must have had such a shock, right? They thought it was a day just like any other day. And they were visited by these angels, and they said, "Fear not, for behold, we have good news of great joy that will be for all people." And I just love that. I love that the promise of joy is for all people and that Jesus is for all people. So as you think about Advent this week and joy, I didn't grow up in an Orthodox setting or a liturgical church. I'm going to just do a little bit around my candle here. I don't have I tend to, be a little bit probably looser in the rhythms of the Advent practice, and sometimes stick more on point. I know there are specific readings every year. Sometimes I do those and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I just take that theme and start hunting in the Bible for verses around joy. So that is what I was doing this morning, and just thinking about what I wanted to share in my own heart this year. So, okay, so again, as you can see, you may even start to see in your own painting how it just starts to pop a little bit. And we can create, again, looking maybe up at your trees. I lost a little bit of my trees differentiation. They kind of bled a little bit up into the sky, and that's okay. This is not, we are doing this for our own practice, our own practice of quieting our hearts and our minds, focusing on the season, enjoying this, right? This is joyful, to be able to take pen and ink and paint to paper and just really express what's in our hearts and the themes of the season. It's going to be beautiful. I try to keep these small too so we can stick them into our journals. Maybe you save them for next year and pull them out. It's a great practice to write on the back, maybe a prayer that you have, focusing this week on joy. What are you rejoicing in this year? What is joyful? And writing just your own praise to the Lord of joy. And so you can do all these things with them and just keeping them small and compact so they're easily savable and findable, hopefully. Okay, so I'm coming back on this tree, which is a little bit in the background. So I'm just doing a little bit here. I'm actually going to end up going in here with some blue. So we're going to dab in some blue. And I'm going to be careful. We're going to leave this just a little bit unfinished. And you can always come back and add some more. Sometimes I end up doing more, and then sometimes two, because this is such a busy time of year, we don't quite get to finish. And so that's okay too. I just really encourage you to do what you can, enjoy the process, and know too that a lot more is going on in our own hearts when we do these things than we realize. And so whatever gets done on paper, that's fine. That was meant to be. And so don't be dismayed too if you don't quite finish it like you thought you would. And you can always, we'll end up coming back. I may jump back in the week after Christmas and show some ways to either finish them up or put them together in a little bit of a journal. All right, so you can see too where I'm taking the pen and just making some darker areas too where I want to focus in. That's creating some shadowing itself too. If you wanted to move out over here. And again, just creating some shadowing effects here. I'm going to leave that area mostly alone. We might put a bit of a wash over it, but I'm not going to do a lot of detail. What I want to do now is I want to go back in. We'll add some color. Right here, I would like to actually add a little bit more yellow to really show that light of Jesus, right? So I want to focus on doing that. So let's go ahead and we will go ahead and then start doing that second portion here, okay? So what I'm going to grab is I'm going to grab some yellow. I want to take the yellow, and knowing too that once we put the yellow on, we're going to probably really have to leave that area pretty much alone. So I'm going to go ahead and maybe I'm even going to put some yellow even on the stump, that candle shining out. And then up here, up top, I'm going to put just the little, only in this main star. I'm going to go ahead and just do some bright yellow and just extend it out just like that. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my paints. We're going to go back with that green and the blue. And I'm going to go ahead and take the blue. Actually, let's do the blue first. I'm going to just move the blue a little bit, maybe around down in here. So just moving it just a little bit around these spots, not tons. Avoiding the star where we put the yellow, otherwise it is going to, what will end up happening is we'll have a green star. But wherever you wanted some more shadowing, you think, you know what, it just got a little bit too blended in with my green, go ahead and add some blue. And you know, the contrast clarifies. So a lot of times that contrast, that really bold color, will help to bring some clarification to edges. So we're just doing that bold color around the trees. If you want to take the tip of your brush and you can even move it with some of the branches like that. I think one of the reasons too I wanted to pick evergreen trees was because that symbolism of just the love of God, right? The evergreen tree always stays green all year round, and just thinking about that never-ending love of God for us, his faithfulness to us, which was our theme last week. I'm going to put some shadowing under this tree too. And I got a little bit of brown in there. I'm not going to be too worried about that either. I'm going to move in here. I'm just going to end up coming back and I can take a little bit off. I'll go a little bit more underneath, again, just for shadowing's sake, underneath the stump and coming around there. I'll take a dry brush and I'll just clean that up a bit. So I'm not too worried about that. And we'll just move it like so. All right, now that I have that, I'm going to take my water and I will just go ahead and soften a little bit out underneath the trees. But again, I do want that contrast. We're going to create some shadowing over here a bit, just a bit. And then I'm going to come back with brown and I'm just going to go over it. You don't have to do this if it feels like it's too dark, too much of a contrast that you want to do. But I'm just going to move that in here. And once again, the brown and the blue together end up creating a bit of a contrast. And then what I do is I just move it back up into my stump And that way I'm creating some different color, variations of color, and it's not flat because we don't want our paintings to look flat. We do want them to be robust and looking as some parts are moving forward. So we're gonna just move that over there. I'm gonna go underneath my trees like so, and then over here like so, taking a little bit more. And we're gonna move a little bit more of that blue right in here, in between some of those branches, maybe a little bit right in here. That blue peeking through. I know we're being a little bit daring here, right? It can look a little bit daring when we start to go in between, but I really like the look of this and the way it feels like, you know, that darkness is piercing, but the light shines brighter. The light of our Advent candle, the light symbolizing the star, symbolizing that Jesus has come, and the joy, because joy always pierces the darkness, right? It is one of those things you cannot, the joy just breaks through darkness. So I'm going to grab a little bit of blue, mix it in my green, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, I'm going to put a little bit of the phthalo as well, so we have a little bit of a brighter blue, and moving this around, and then just taking the edges right in here. So I've got this tree down here, this is my main one, and then over here too, this tree is up front. So adding in some color here, and then I am going to actually take the blue all by itself, and I'm just going to go ahead and dip the paint into the blue, and even just add, this is a bit of just a little bit of that blue right on top, just like that. And you know, right there, that's going to give it some, definitely some shadowing. But this tree, I'm going to leave it lighter just so we have a contrast, because again, contrast clarifies. So that tree I'm going to leave pretty much alone. This tree right here up in front that I have, I am going to, once again, I'm going to grab those darker colors. That green that I have, I'm going to grab some blue, and I'm going to just get a little bit of color. If you find like it's too much blue, just add some more green in. Be careful of that area where your candle is. And we're not doing a ton, just a little bit. Up this guy in here, I want just a little bit of a line, making sure you can see that there. You can see the painting is really taking on quite a bold, right? It is a bold painting, as well as our joy is bold, right? Our joy is bold. We have many reasons to be just filled with the joy of Jesus. It doesn't come from ourselves. It's definitely His gift to us that we can just, that we get to take part in, which I love. Okay, so I am really going to probably finish this up now. I'm not going to do too much. Now, I will tell you once this dries, I will clean this up in here a little bit. Definitely clean that up. I'm going to go ahead, my last little, one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit more pink, and I'm going to dab it right around the candle and just on one side only. Only on one side, and just moving it down the bottom. So we have got a little bit of perimeter. Again, that's going to create some shadowing, and it's going to help the candle not appear like it's flat. And I'll move in closer so you can see that. And that is really, we're finishing up with this. So go ahead, let it dry, but I am going to go ahead for you. I don't usually do this a lot of times because we are really wet, right, with our canvas. But I just want you to see that beauty of when you take it off, the edges are so clean and lovely. And it's really fun what you can, you have a nice clean border here. Normally what I do too is I might take a picture of it with my camera, because sometimes on the camera I'll see some changes I need to make that I don't see when I'm staring at it right here. We still have a really nice border right in here to continue to do our writing in. I will end up coming back, like I said, and cleaning that up a bit, but I need to wait for it to dry. Otherwise, I'll make a little bit more of a mess. So we just have to kind of work within the rules of watercolor, so to speak. Okay, but even when you take off the tape, you really start to see it has a different look. You can see where the light pops out, and I think it's lovely. This is a beautiful symbol of our week 3 Advent, and this week is the week of joy. So I pray that you do have a really joy-filled week, that you look for just gifts of joy, and that you are a joy to all those around you. Okay, you guys, I hope you have a fantastic week. I will see you soon.